In this lecture, we're focusing on carbohydrates and why they are the most important fuel source for endurance exercise and athletic performance. Carbohydrates are often misunderstood, restricted, or even feared. But from a physiological standpoint, they are absolutely essential for athletes. This lecture will walk you through why carbohydrates matter, how much athletes need, and when carbohydrate intake matters most. The importance of carbohydrates as a fuel source for exercise is very well established in sports nutrition research. Carbohydrates are the body's fastest and most efficient source of energy, especially when exercise intensity increases. While fat can provide energy at rest and during low intensity activity, carbohydrates become the dominant fuel as intensity rises. And when there's low carbohydrate availability, it can lead to fatigue and even impaired performance. When we eat carbohydrates, they are broken down into glucose. That glucose is either used immediately for energy or stored as glycogen in the muscles and liver. Muscle glycogen fuels working muscles, while liver glycogen helps maintain blood glucose levels, especially during longer workouts. The key here is that glycogen storage is limited, which is why carbohydrates must be consumed regularly. Even in a well-fueled athlete, glycogen stores only last about 24 hours at best, with 300 to 500 grams stored up in the muscle and about 80 grams stored up in the liver. Once glycogen is depleted, fatigue sets in quickly and performance drops. This is why athletes who don't replenish carbohydrates daily are at risk for progressive glycogen depletion, poor training quality, or even stalled adaptations to training. Carbohydrate needs aren't a one size fits all, and they need to be scaled with training load. They depend on exercise intensity, duration, body weight, and training goals. For endurance athletes, daily carbohydrate intake may range anywhere from 7 to 12 grams per kilogram of body weight per day, depending on training demands. This is much higher than the general population recommendations for a good reason, because there is extra demand put in place when we are training. And as you can see on this slide, we go from a low intensity with the recommendation of 3 to 5 grams per kilogram of body weight per day, or on that day of training, up to extreme endurance, which could be up to 4 to 5 plus hours per day. And an athlete could need as much as 8 to 12 grams per kilogram per day. And then figuring out how to consume that throughout the day to reach this desired goal on these different types of training days. With the RDA being a minimum of 130 grams per day for adults and children, which is the amount just required for brain to function. So I would think of this as a minimum amount. So now we're looking at timing. Before exercise, the goal of carbohydrate intake is to top off those glycogen stores, prevent hunger, and then delay fatigue. For exercise lasting longer than 60 minutes, athletes should aim for 1 to 4 grams of carbohydrates per kilogram of body weight in the 1 to 4 hours before activity. You can see this takes some planning. Using a combination of glucose and fructose can be especially beneficial and easier to digest. It helps maximize liver glycogen storage and supports endurance performance. And some examples might be rice and a lean protein, as shown in the picture here with the rice and the lentils, toast and fruit, oatmeal, but always note the if tolerated part. So you want to consume things before exercise that you know are tolerated well by your body. Within 1 hour of exercise, you'd want to eat a little something to top off the blood glucose and prevent early fatigue. So we want small, easily digested carbs, approximately 25 to 30 grams in total. And this could be sports drink, applesauce, crackers, lots of different options here of some pretty simple carbohydrates. During exercise lasting longer than an hour, carbohydrate intake can significantly improve performance. For most endurance and intermittent high intensity sports, recommendations range from 30 to 90 grams of carbohydrate per hour. And you can see the chart here when it is broken down per hour, how much someone might need. And this is to help maintain blood glucose levels, delay fatigue, and preserve performance. So at moderate intake levels, around 30 to 60 grams per hour, athletes can tolerate many carbohydrate types and formats, including drinks, gels, and bars could be used here. When carbohydrate intake increases above 60 grams per hour, glucose fructose mixtures become important. And this is where you might look at a label to see the type of carbohydrate that is in the beverage or the supplement. These combinations use different intestinal transporters, which allows for faster absorption and oxidation, and reduces gastrointestinal distress, and allows athletes to sustain higher carbohydrate intakes during long events. But don't forget about recovery. After exercise, the primary goal is glycogen recovery, replenishment. To maximize glycogen resynthesis, athletes should consume 1 to 1.2 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram of body weight per hour for the first 4 hours post-exercise to take advantage of a window where there is faster glucose uptake occurring, and therefore replenishment of the glycogen stores, and also activating other recovery mechanisms in the body so that one can perform at a high level in their next training session. Higher glycemic index carbohydrates are ideal during this window because they are digested and absorbed quickly and oftentimes easy to consume. A mix of carbohydrates and protein for recovery are important. Carbohydrate source matters, and glucose supports muscle glycogen replenishment, while fructose helps restore liver glycogen more effectively. This is why combining carbohydrate sources such as fruit plus starches or glucose fructose blends can optimize overall recovery. And here are some examples with that carbohydrate protein combination. Chocolate milk is a very well-researched recovery beverage. Yogurt and fruit, a turkey sandwich, and just kind of coming up with some new ideas that work for that individual athlete or for you yourself. Periodized carbohydrate intake is important because not every day needs to be the same carbohydrate intake. Not every training day requires the same amount. Athletes should use a periodized approach, matching carbohydrate intake to the training demands, depending on intensity, duration. High intensity or long duration days require higher carbohydrate intake, while lighter or recovery days may require less, but never zero. Remember that minimum is 130, but athletes often need more than that. Carbohydrates are the most important fuel source for endurance and high intensity exercises. They must be consumed daily due to limited storage capacity. Timing matters. Before, during, and after exercise all serve different physiological roles. And finally, carbohydrate intake should be individualized and periodized to support both performance and long-term health.